Hey, everybody. Josh Sheridan here with the Barely Legal Podcast.
They demand my alter ego, but I won't go. Because
On today's show, we have Steve Gavatorta, who is a motivational speaker, life coach, professional coach, and probably a bunch of other titles that he'll explain to me. This will be my second podcast where I'm pushing our first sponsor, Distill. Distill makes sunglasses, wallets, iPhone cases, keychains. They've been nice enough to give us a promotional code. So Barely Legal Podcast, no spaces, no caps, no underscores. Will get you a discount on their website. I love their sunglasses. I wear them every day. Very cool stuff. We don't get paid any ad dollars. So this is not me trying to make money. It's just trying to give you a gift of a discount on a product that I really love. So check out distillunion.com. Distill, the great product. So Steve Gavatorta, I know you through a mutual friend,
That's right.
Jalal Khatib, who is a podcast alumni and a dear friend of mine that I've known forever. And through his introduction of you to me, I've gotten to kind of bone up on what it is that you do and kind of what your philosophy is. But before we even get into any of that stuff, I want to learn a little bit about you. Are you a Florida guy originally, or did you move here?
No, originally a Pittsburgh, a Steeler guy. Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
You're my second.
Yeah.
I know I had a Philly guy, which not exactly, kind of the same, but not exactly the same. Yeah. So how long were you in Pittsburgh?
Born and raised up to age 19. And then I went to college 2 hours north of Pittsburgh, small liberal arts school called Allegheny College, where I played D3 football, and then moved back down for my first job out of college with a company called Beecham Products,
Okay.
where I was schlepping toothpaste and all kinds of fun things. Yeah, so I spent two more years. So whatever that is, about 21 or so years.
Gavatorta sounds Italian to me. Am I correct?
Very Italian.
What part of Italy? Do you know?
Florence.
Oh, wow.
Florence,
Florence is my favorite part of Italy.
Beautiful.
Have you been?
Yeah, Bologna.
Oh, yeah.
Naples.
Yeah.
Yeah, Naples, Milan. I mean, all beautiful.
I've been over there twice, and both times I went, it was head and shoulders above the rest of my
best food.
Oh my God. Amazing food, the temperature, the climate, the people, the scenery, all of it. The first time I went, first we did Paris, then we did Rome, Florence, Venice. And I was pretty exhausted by the time we got to Florence, but Venice, never do Venice at the end of your trip to Italy because you're so damn tired and walking over those steps and bridges is just horrible. So
no, I've had my best little unassuming bowl of pasta I ever had in my life in Bologna. I mean, just simple.
Less is more. Yeah, the Americans suss it up with too much crap.
Way too much.
Yeah.
Simplicity.
So, can I assume Italian Catholic family growing up?
Well, my father was the black sheep of the Catholic family.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Okay.
So I was baptized Catholic, but I was not raised a Catholic,
All right.
so to speak. Yeah, he was kind of the black sheep. His two sisters were very religious, very Catholic, but he was the bad boy, the smoker, got in a little bit of trouble and whatnot.
Like to mix it up.
Yeah, but my parents both didn't discourage me from any religion.
Sure.
I just wasn't brought up with it.
And what about siblings?
I'm only child.
Are you?
Yes.
This is going to be so good because I too am an only child. And it's one of my favorite conversations to have with other only children.
Are you good at basic math?
Am I good at basic math? Yes, basic math I'm good at.
I was born October of 1962. My parents were married April of 1962.
Okay.
So do the math.
Yeah. You figure that out.
But they're still together. So
well, it's interesting though, not to get ahead of ourselves, but the nature of what you do and what you write about is very much a social study, psychological, that sort of thing. And I really am always just amazed and so interested in the impact of being an only child versus having a lot of siblings have on who we become in life. I've spent a lot of time looking at that. In fact, this Saturday is a 1-year anniversary of my mom passing, and my dad passed the year before that. And as an only child, as you might imagine, it was kind of becoming an orphan in my 40s was not to be melodramatic, but it was kind of an interesting transition. So, so growing up in Pittsburgh, you said you were a football player. What else were you into?
Wrestling and
you look like a wrestler.
Well, actually, my sport was football. I was a little little guy.
Fast though, I bet.
I was
Yeah.
at age, I don't know if you have any conception of when you're seventh grade, but in seventh grade, I weighed 75 pounds.
Like 12 years old or something like that?
Yeah. Little guy.
Yeah.
That was my first year of wrestling too. And I was first up.
Wrestling in seventh grade?
Yeah. Oh,
Wow.
yeah. Oh, my hometown. I don't know if you know much about Western PA. Massive wrestling.
You guys are working in like coal mines at like 4, aren't
I'm
you?
from a coal mining town.
Yeah.
But my dad was a meat cutter. Go figure.
Okay, well, there you go. Did he get to bring home some good cuts of, I mean,
Well, I was lucky. I ate well growing up. Both parents were good cooks, number one. Number two, my dad was a meat cutter for Kroger for years.
oh, sure.
Then after that, he ended up buying his own produce market.
Oh, wow.
So I helped run the produce market. So I had the best of both worlds, man. I love food.
Yeah,
being
you
Italian.
ate well.
Yeah.
And what did your mom do? Was she stay at home or?
She was an admin for the local high school.
Oh, okay.
Her first job with the high school is this. You'll love this one. This may describe a lot of my issues.
Sure.
She was attendance office lady for
Oh.
the high school. Can
What
you
was
imagine that
your
one?
attendance like?
I never missed a class except my senior year, where I actually missed 3 classes. And when you were late for 3 classes, and when you were late or missed a class, you either got SWATs or detention.
Oh, wow.
So I
Was
was
it a private school or a public school?
public school.
Okay.
So I was a senior.
They
and
give you
I-
SWATs in public school?
Oh yeah, I'm an old dude, man.
I guess back then it was,
Yeah,
a
exactly.
different world.
But I go to my mother. This is my 3rd one. She looks at me. She didn't play around. She goes, detention or SWATs?
Yeah.
Being a senior, I was kind of a smart ass. I said, I'll take the
Yeah.
SWATs. First time ever. That will be the last time. Oh yeah, it took the wind out of me.
Yeah.
So I blame my mother for my first.
First
SWATs.
knockout. Yeah. Your first TKO.
Exactly.
So high school, and then you said you went to college in Allegheny. What was your degree in?
Economics.
Economics.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And what was the driving factor with you in economics? Did you just know you wanted to go into business, or?
It was a small liberal arts school, great school. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate I went there. I actually didn't have the grades or the SATs to get in. I actually got in because I played football.
Okay.
But I'm fortunate I did because it really, I grew as a person going to Allegheny. You had to learn to write.
Not to date you, but what years are we talking that you're there?
Oh my goodness, 81 through 85.
All right.
Yeah.
Huh.
But it's a small liberal arts school, but the closest thing to business, as you were saying, was economics.
Right.
So I almost minored in psych, which I wish I would have. But I was an economics major and wanted to be in the business world.
Now, you said you were shilling toothpaste. Was that in college or once you got out?
And once I got out.
Okay. And was that in Pittsburgh or was that somewhere else?
Yeah, started in Pittsburgh. It was a company at the time called Beecham Products.
Wasn't there a Beecham bubble gum?
That's what everyone's. They
it's
assume-
different.
Different
Yeah.
company. Yeah. Beecham ultimately became a division of GlaxoSmithKline.
Okay.
So I sold everything from healthcare products, feminine hygiene products, detergent.
And this was in the
pipe
late 80s, right?
mid 80s.
Mid 80s. So
Yeah.
you're shaking hands and kissing babies. There's no social media, no platforms, no emails. I mean, you got to go and meet these people.
I was responsible for calling on minimally 8 grocery stores a day. So I had to go into the manager, speak to the health and beauty aids clerk, and try to sell our product, basically. And
did they give you any training in sales, or did you kind of have to develop it on the?
No, that's another turning point in my life. A lot of the upper level managers at Beecham Products were formerly at Procter and Gamble.
Okay.
And back in the day, Procter had they were the Cadillac of training.
Sure.
So I received a ton of training, 4-step call process, or 4-step presentation process, 10-step call process, how to handle objections, great questioning and listening skills. In fact, the reason I went with that company was the director of training and manpower development. His name's Santo La Quattro. You know about that Italian. Yeah, Santo hired me. And I fell in love with training back then, and that's why I ultimately pursued this business.
It's a very interesting thing that I think about, and as a business person, I have the longer I've done this, realized how poor of a salesperson attorneys are dealing with clients, which is interesting given how good of a salesperson they're supposed to be persuading a judge or a jury. It's this duplicity. It's like, how can you have the skill set and talents and use it so well here and be so horrible at it there. And there is a book, you probably heard of it. Have you ever read Hidden Persuaders or heard of Hidden Persuaders?
No.
So this was a book, I think it's Dag Hammarskjöld. It was one of my dad's books he used to talk about all the time. And it just went through a lot of stuff that's even unspoken sales tactics, like why grocery stores put things where they put them,
right.
and line of sight, and just the hidden, what are the things that you don't realize are driving you, and so I'm sure there was a lot of interplay between that and what you learned in your training.
Big time. Oh yeah, there's definitely patterns in a grocery store to drive consumers certain areas. There's rhyme and reason for the end caps, what's displayed. I mean, there is a lot of psychology behind what happens in a grocery store.
Well, and now it's almost become 1984 or Brave New World, because now we can talk about New Balance sneakers, and later on when I search for where I'm going to get pizza tonight, a bunch of New Balance sneaker ads are going to pop up on my phone, and they have geolocations where if you search something close enough to this business, they're going to populate. It's just gotten crazy.
Yeah. Part of my career, I spent 2 years with a company called 3 years with a company called Catalina Marketing, which is based in St. Pete, Florida. I was at the time in New Jersey, but we did targeted based couponing,
right,
where we read the purchase behavior via loyalty cards.
Right.
And at the point of sale, we were able to execute coupons. So if you were a Pepsi buyer and one of our clients was Coke, we would shoot you a Coke coupon.
Right.
To switch from that competitor.
Right.
Or if I bought a small size of mayonnaise, they'd know that, and they'd shoot me a coupon for a larger size, trying to upsell me. So
it's so amazing.
Psychology is amazing.
Well, 100%. My brother-in-law owns Elite Marketing, Bill Kolichowski, and he did a lot of Ramada and Cruise Line stuff, and it was a lot of the mailer pieces. And I'd sit there, and people are trying to make your mail look like IRS letters, or they were putting like beach sand smell in the envelope. So when you open it up, you've got all these things that they're just trying to lock you in. So there's, the appealing to people on various levels is such an interesting topic to me, especially as an attorney. So,
which is about driving customer loyalty. I mean, you have a loyal customer, you have them for life.
Right.
And that's the heartbeat of a company and a brand, is to have those loyal brands and companies, customers that don't easily switch.
Sure.
If I go in a grocery store and they don't carry that item I'm highly loyal to, I'm going to walk. I'm going to go find it.
Would you agree with me, though, that over the past 20, 30, 40 years, the loyalty of a customer has become very fickle? Like, I mean, where it used to be there was only 3 companies that you could go to. Now there's thousands. And not only that, but it wasn't in front of, we're being marketed to every second of every day.
Well, I agree with that. I think the internet has a lot to do with that.
Sure.
One of my clients is a mattress company, and I can't tell you I'm sure you imagine what's going on with online mattresses, the Purple Bed and Tough the Mattresses, another one where people aren't as loyal to the brand as much as they are convenience. I'm going to get
convenience and price
online.
point.
Yeah, exactly. So they're battling that online business, which is changing the dynamics of that industry significantly for not only the manufacturer, but for the retailer, brick and mortar retailer as well too.
Right. So Beecham, how long did you do that for?
About 10 years.
Okay. And then what came after?
Same type of, essentially all these jobs were in sales and marketing. So I called on
still up in that part of the country, or?
No, I started off in Pittsburgh for 2 years as what was called a territory manager, calling on retail grocery stores. Then I was promoted to what was called a headquarter account manager in Detroit, Michigan. I spent 2 years up there calling on the corporate headquarters of retailers, like a Publix headquarters rather than a retail store. Then I left them and I went with a company called Warner Lambert. During that time frame, syndicated data, RI and Nielsen, loyalty card data started becoming big. And I was actually good at that, analyzing data and being able to drive actionable insights from that data for a sales call or for a sales team. So my job started transitioning more into sales analytics. So I spent 5 years with the division of Warner Lambert, same type of products, Listerine, Dentine, Trident, selling again to grocery stores, wholesalers, and whatnot. I spent 5 years there, left them, went with Catalina Marketing for 3, and then ended my career with a company you may have heard of called Eastman Kodak.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, they fell by the wayside just like the horse and buggy did.
Well, yeah. Film and I still drive by the bookstores and remember the bookstores. And I'm a big fan of buying vinyl, and those kind of died and then resurrected a little bit. But now with COVID, I don't know what's going to happen to a lot of these places. So how did you make your way to Florida?
It's a great story. You'll love this one. I was in Detroit, Michigan, working as a headquarter account manager, and we had a big merger. And I had started visiting Florida to visit some of my friends at Beecham Products. So with this merger, a lot of the old Beecham guys kind of lost out in that merger. And one of the gentlemen who was a district manager in Tampa, his name was Al Clements. I loved Al. I used to always visit him. And I said, Al, if you resign, because he wasn't happy with the merger, call me up. I want your job, because that job was the next logical move for me, which was called area manager, which I managed the headquarter account managers and territory managers. So lo and behold, Al calls me and said, I'm resigning, put your name in a hat. So it wasn't easy just to throw your name in a hat. I had to leave my region.
Right, yeah.
So the district manager was okay with it. He said, you have to talk to Jim, our region manager. And Jim Shanahan was a 6'2" guy, intimidating, distinguished, former football player, good looking dude, gray hair. I mean, he carried with him a lot of clout. But he was also a little bit known as a womanizer.
Oh, okay.
Like women. So I meet with Jim, and Jim says, I hear you want to move to Florida. Tell me why. And I gave the right answer initially. I said, listen, they're struggling down there. They need a lot of training and development. They're not making their numbers. I can come in and turn this team around and, increase sales and whatnot. And he goes, try again. So I said, sunshine, good looking women, beaches. He goes, I'll see what I can do.
Yeah. Don't give me the bullshit party line. Give me that. Yeah.
True story, man. And I ended up coming down here. I want to say it was 80, or it had to be 89 or 90.
So have you been here since then?
I had not brief stint. I moved to New Jersey for 2 years with Warner Lambert.
Okay.
And then lived in New York City for 5 years.
Oh, wow. What years were you in New York City?
I want to say 2000 and 2004. I was there for 9/11.
You were?
Yes.
Where were you?
I was working for an offshoot of that company, Catalina Marketing, near the Empire State Building.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And there was a television station in the lobby, TV in the lobby, not television station, TV in the lobby. And we kept going from our office down and watching this happen. And I didn't see the towers fall. However, when we left, you could see the plumes of smoke.
So you weren't in the smoke. You didn't have to walk off of the boroughs.
No. We were on 34th, right next to the Empire State Building.
Sure.
And I had to go north. I lived on the Upper West Side, so I had to walk north, thank goodness.
Crazy. I've had a couple of guests on the show who were there at the time, and the stories, I was in law school at the time, and I remember walking through the main office and seeing it there. And, that was up until that point. I don't think anything registered with me as my Vietnam or my Kennedy assassination or whatever. But that was really kind of in some ways, the end of an age of innocence, which now it's seeming more and more frequent, these huge life events that we're dealing with, which is kind of a segue into the reason that you're here. So this is your second book that you wrote.
That's
is that
correct?
Yeah. And what's the name of your book?
In Defense of Adversity, Turning Your Toughest Challenges into Your Greatest Success.
So when did the seed of the idea to become an author come into your mind? How is it that you got into being more of a consulting person than in sales? What
was I had said, my first hire was a gentleman named Santo, who was director of training and manpower development, and he became my role model. And he's still my role model and my mentor today.
Oh, wow.
And Santo ended up leaving Beecham to start his own consulting business. So as I progressed through corporate America, I saw where companies weren't investing in the training and development like they used to, and people were floundering or struggling. And I knew the importance of a foundation of selling skills, of question listening skills, of managerial skills, leadership skills. So I always had a passion for that.
Right.
And after the Kodak scenario, I was actually thinking about leaving corporate America prior. But really my time at Kodak was a little disappointing because it was during...
It was at the waning age of film.
Yeah, and they had their head in their sand. I was dealing with a very difficult retailer in New Jersey called ShopRite, who was tough. And I just was not enjoying my corporate job anymore. So I really started pursuing a consultant.
What was the first book that you wrote?
It's called Reach Out Approach.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more about communication skills.
And now, did you work with a writer on these, or did you do it all yourself?
No, I had publishers on both of them.
Okay.
And so I was.
How did you find that process? Was it easy? Was it the hardest thing you ever had to do? Somewhere in between?
No, it's through mutual relationships. A woman that I was a member of with the National.
Not finding the writer, but the writing process.
Oh yeah, it's writing is difficult for me. I mean, even though I am a decent writer, I can get something laid on the page, but I cannot take it to the next level or make it pop or sound right or make it jump. I get it down and that's it.
Okay.
It's a rough process for me. Even if when I get it down, I have to walk away for a little bit, come back and revisit it. So I'm good structurally and foundationally, but creatively, I'm not as good of a writer. So
now, were you consulting already by the time you did your first book, or did you kind of do those both at the same time?
Yeah.
So was that first book kind of the culmination of your initial experience in consulting?
It was my passion for communication skills. I'm certified in a multitude of assessments.
Right.
Something called DISC. Are you familiar with DISC?
I read your bio, and I think I read what it stood for, but you'll have to tell the listener what it is.
Yeah, DISC is a behavioral assessment. It's an acronym that talks about 4 basic behavior styles. D stands for dominance. I stands for influence, S stands for steadiness, C stands for compliance. And there's various attributes that help you understand each style, how each style behaves, how they communicate, how they make decisions, how they deal with change, risk, and conflict, and how they're motivated. What I do is really help my customers first understand their respective style and how to better sell based on that style, how to better lead based on that style, especially by understanding those people
understanding your audience.
Correct.
Well, so this is so germane to what I do as a trial lawyer, because you're picking your audience. You're trying to set an audience up to be receptive to your argument, to be receptive to your style. And you have varying degrees of success depending on, what your jury pool is and stuff like that. But there's 2 parts to communicating. They're understanding your strengths and then understanding what resonates with your audience.
Well, that was the key to writing this first book. What I found, I'd taken a lot of behavioral assessments, Myers-Briggs, which I'm certified in that, to DISC, social styles. And the trainer would come in and train us, and they'd say, here's your 4 styles, here's what you are, and don't let the door hit you in the butt when you leave. I mean, there was more to that, but a lot of people are saying, what do we do with this now? How do I use this with my customer? So what I've done, I've developed a process so as a salesperson, I can profile through instructional videos. I help people profile the DISC style of those people they're interacting with.
Right.
So if I'm in a sales call, I'm going to start, based on what I teach people, start helping them profile that buyer so he or she can adapt their style for effective communication. So if I'm a type A personality, I'm gregarious, I'm talkative, I'm extroverted, I'm very forceful. If my customer is very analytical, very reserved, very introverted, if I come at them too hard, I'm going to shut them down. Exactly. Yeah. So what I do is help people understand first their style. So learn their style. Secondly, help them read the behaviors of others, then how to adapt their style for effective communication, sales, presentation skills, things of that nature as well too. So it's really being fluid, knowing who you're talking to, and being more the chameleon to help make better connections with people as well, to build trust through communication, basically.
So another one of the things that I see that you have experience or training in is emotional intelligence. And that is a concept to me that I would say in the past 5 years has just resonated with me big time. So I started going to therapy within about that same time frame. And so just a little bit of background is I've been an attorney since 2002. 2005, I started doing family law. And as you might imagine, I run into a lot of people who maybe emotionally have not developed the way that others might. Yeah. And, marriage is difficult for people who are relatively well adjusted and have some modicum of emotional intelligence. But so much of what I see in my divorce practice and a lot of what I see in politics, I see emotional intelligence as such a
missing element.
or it's the grass that no one waters. You know, they spend so much time training their intellect or training their skill set and completely leave that aside. And, you know, you mentioned alpha or kind of aggressive people. A lot of these divorces, I have, you know, business owners, these people who've just done so well financially. They've risen to the top of their field, but they don't know how to be a partner in their marriage or a parent and it's just amazing to me because I think it's equally, if not more important than your intelligence is your emotional intelligence. So speak on that if you can.
Yeah, you can. Let's look at IQ first. You can be a Harvard Ed grad, master's degree or doctorate, and be the smartest person in the world. But if you are prone to anger, if you are prone to losing your patience, or you shut down when you don't get your way, you're no longer effective.
Right.
If I am leading someone and I'm irritating my staff around me, they're not productive anymore either. So I think that's very harmful. I had a former girlfriend like that. She's the smartest, brightest person in the world, but she had no clue about how she came across and irritated a lot of people around her. So she had high IQ, but very low EQ.
If there's a beacon out there that just comes to mind when we're talking about that, it's Zuckerberg, because we've got an individual who, no question, intelligence is just off the charts. But he literally can't put a sentence together. Yeah. And every time he tries to testify to the Senate or whatever, or goes on these, I just see the hole being dug deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah. And it's funny because I just think it's that disparity of development there. Yeah. And, you know, I don't know how we kind of change what we emphasize in society or change what we value in society. But, you know, another person that, and I don't want to make it political, but I look at it a lot as a president, you know, I would argue that his emotional intelligence is not necessarily optimal for the position that he holds. And
I think it's sometimes he gets himself in trouble.
Yeah.
Not necessarily in trouble. Yes.
And I think certain of the policies that he wants to push forward and certain of the things that he wants to try and do, if he could just conduct himself in more of a, I don't want to say political, but kind of inclusive rather than exclusive manner, he might have more success in what he's trying to do than by just he's a hammer and everybody's a nail, you know?
Well, if you look at the DISC survey, he's definitely a high D. I mean, Donald Trump is high. He might have some influencer style too, because there is a good people side of him as well too. But I mean, he's definitely that high dominant style. And what I think something that would help him realize is not all people are that style.
Right.
Not all people will receive that.
You don't use the same tool for every job.
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So all of that stuff just amazes me. So that was the first book that you worked on, and then you got into in the defense of adversity as kind of sharpening your sword, as it were.
Yeah, that's my baby right there. That's what I'm.
So was there some specific adversity that you went through that kind of got you thinking about this, or was it just something that you were seeing in the world, or how did that come about?
It's a great story. Let's go back to Pittsburgh.
Sure.
I'm from a small coal mining town, as you said earlier, called Burgettstown, Pennsylvania. And Burgettstown was known in the day for immigrants because they came there for as you said earlier, coal mines, steel mills.
Like a lot of Lithuanian up there. My aunt's from there, and
every ethnic group.
Sure.
I grew up on my block with every ethnic group possible, and in Burgettstown too. Truth be told, I don't understand political correctness in many ways because it didn't exist in.
There was the absence of it.
Oh, we all teased each other relentlessly. Sure. I wanted to be called nicknamed Dago. My cousin was nicknamed Dago, and I was mad. Everyone's like, "Were you offended?" I'm like, "No, I wanted to be called Dago."
Yeah, it was a badge of honor. Yeah.
So I grew up with every ethnic group possible, but again, it was an influx for coal miners, steel mill folks. So about 5 years ago, I told my dad I had never seen the house he grew up in, and he took me up.
Your parents still around?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Very
took me to a little village within our hometown called Langloth. That is where a lot of the coal mining and steel mill families lived back in the day. And as you can imagine, these aren't attractive houses. They're tenement houses. Yeah. They all look the same. They're all built the same. Nothing special about them. Very plain looking. So my father, who's a successful entrepreneur by his own rights, said, "That's where I grew up." Points to another house and said, "That's where Dr. Meropis grew up." points to another house. There's where Dr. Strassi grew up. There's where Dr. Spinogens grew up. There's where Barry Alvarez grew up. Do you know who Barry Alvarez is?
Sounds familiar, but
he's the winningest football coach at University of Wisconsin,
All right.
the current athletic director. And it really hit me. What a great story in this day and age of complaining or not being grateful for what we have or giving up too easily or uncontrolled emotions. This story needed to be told. Here you have all these immigrants coming from everywhere around the world, not speaking English, let alone each other's language, became doctors, lawyers, businessmen and women, entrepreneurs, soldiers, athletic directors, pro athletes. It was really a great story. The problem is I'm not a biographer.
Sure.
So I spent a few years, I interviewed a lot of these families, and the stories they told me, Josh, were amazing. I mean, you hear some immigrant stories now, I'd say nothing compared to what these people faced. And it was just so motivating. And the driving factor that I found in each of these families I interviewed Barry Alvarez too, was that adversity made them. It didn't break them.
Well, it's a fork in the road, you know, and it's 100% true. And, you know, not to segue too much, but the way we met was through Jalal Khatib, who owns Tampa Muay Thai, and I understand that you've trained there. And so if you have any interest at all in the fight sports, you look at a lot of these athletes who have excelled to the top of their sport, they had the most dismal lives growing up, just poverty, abuse, you know, absent parents, death, destruction. And it really is, you've got a choice. I don't know how much of it is a choice and how much of it is just kind of, you know, happenstance, but it can either make you or break you. It really can. Yeah. So,
well, you look at so many leaders, Winston Churchill, Abraham Lincoln, the adversity that they faced was incredible. Entertainers, Oprah Winfrey. I mean,
for sure. Yeah.
The things they faced and overcame, you know, that again made them ultimately who they were meant to become. And I talk in my book too about our perception of adversity. What is our perception of it? And I talk two parts. Number one is accepting that adversity is a part of life. You know, a change, ambiguity, uncertainty like we're going through now is a part of life. Did we expect a COVID pandemic? No, but it is part of adversity. It's a part of life. So once we accept that, we're less surprised when it happens. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes so much sense. And so if you look over here, I have a statue of Sisyphus, and I don't know if you know the myth of Sisyphus, but basically he was damned to eternally roll the boulder up the mountain. Yeah. And that was the theater of absurd in philosophy, existential kind of theory, but that there is no rhyme or reason. You know, you're not owed anything. Yeah, just because you work hard doesn't mean you get the desired results. Right. Just because you're a good person doesn't mean good things happen to you. Just because you're a bad person doesn't mean bad things. There's almost no rhyme or reason. So to accept that there's no rhyme or reason kind of keeps you more open to the possibility of being knocked off your feet or knocked down. So,
and that speaks to the second part of that. First, accept that adversity is part of life. Secondly, acknowledge that it's placed in our lives to help us grow, transform, and evolve. So I know my toughest times in my life, one of which we can talk about. You asked about my adverse situation, but most of my difficult times turn out to be my best times.
Sure.
And there's no doubt I learned valuable lessons, and I grew as a person when those difficult things happen. Do I go out and seek adversity? No, but I'm much more aware of that it is meant to be, and that I can now take advantage of it. I say if adversity strikes, we must first assertively face it. So many people don't.
Right.
Secondly, hopefully overcome it, but at the least learn a valuable lesson to prepare you down the road as well, too.
Well, and in my younger years, I think I'm getting better about it as I get older, but I used to impute kind of the universe being against me when something happened, this kind of paranoid, this type of thinking. And as I've gotten older, I've understood, no, it's not the universe out to get you. It's just what happens. For instance, my wife and I recently made a pretty big financial decision that I was somewhat averse to from a risk position. I was like, it put me in a less comfortable. And the week after we decided to pull the trigger on it, the AC in my truck broke for $1,200.
Oh, my goodness.
The window on the back of our house shattered for another $1,000, and then I had to pay an insurance bill for $3,000.
That's how it happens.
And it used to be, the old Josh would have been this is God telling me, this is God telling me it was a bad move. But now I'm just like, every year in my life, I can point to these expenses. These just happen to come along now, and I'm not going to let it knock me down. But you said a couple things there that I wanted to jump on. The first was how you can become stronger or learn. And I think this year, our country and society has, not for the first time, but really in the most acute way that we've seen it face adversity, both racially with what we've seen with what's going on with the police and the Black Lives Matter and all that. And then obviously with this pandemic, I have a lot of friends who've been on the show, a lot of friends in the community who are having to close their businesses down. I have a lot of musicians who are on the show and they can't play live. They can't make a buck. A lot of people who own bars and clubs and they can't. And so this is kind of testing their mettle. And again, with the things that we're seeing in Portland and Chicago and across the country with the protests and the riots, it's, adversity. It turned up no full doubt. Blast. But what I'm hoping is that it's going to bring about some lasting change in how we talk about race, how we talk about culture, how we deal with that, how maybe we train our police differently, how we are the respect for police, both sides of the fence. Right, I think it's such as negative as it can be seen. I think it has an ability to bring about a lot of positive. And then also with the COVID, have you thought about your book and your philosophy in the context of those two things?
Oh, absolutely. I'm doing a webinar. I mean, for me too, I'm a consultant, so business has been a little
different.
Not a lot of people are looking for sales training right
now. Trying to stay afloat.
Yeah. So, but I've been able to transition to a pretty popular webinar, very much based on my book called Leading and Self-Managing Through Adverse and Ambiguous Times. And it's been hugely popular. I've gotten business where I didn't think I was going to get much business before. And it's really popular. And I think because so many people are seeking answers to how do I handle what's happening now?
Right.
Uncertainty, ambiguity, adversity. There's skill training for being a salesperson. There's skill training for be a fighter. We're educated through reading, writing, arithmetic. But where's the class on how to deal with adversity in life?
Right.
There's really not one. So this has been a huge topic that has been a big part of my business and big focus. And I've been able to help people, thank goodness, during these crazy times with some insights and skills to help them look at these times again, accept that it's happening, but what do we need to do now moving forward as an individual leader or in your business as well too? Times like this is truly when individuals and companies can get a competitive advantage.
Well, so my brother-in-law, who I mentioned earlier, he's a lot lately been dealing with these import-export deals where everybody's trying to get sanitizer and everybody's trying to get face masks and hand wipes and all these things. And I'm watching this, and I was like, people are going to make and lose fortunes off of how we have marketed this pandemic and marketed what is good. I mean, there's no better example than toilet paper.
Yeah.
By whatever act of the gods, we got to the point where we said toilet paper is going to be important. We need to have a lot of it, and it was just gone from the shelves. This adversity is going to change, and not only that, but like Zoom, which all of my attorney and colleagues now we're appearing remotely and doing virtual stuff as opposed to being in court. And what's great about it for me is I think it's showing the system that it can be done differently than the way it's always been done and done more efficiently and at a better price point. And it just, so again, not even by voluntarily seeking out, we're kind of having advancement shoved into our face. So,
well, back in the day when I was in the consumer packaged goods world, we would give promotional dollars away pretty readily. A retailer would want it, we'd give it away. When Walmart started coming to the marketplace and lowering costs, a lot of people complain about that in my world. It was great for the consumer, very difficult for some manufacturers and retailers. However, in the long term, it made retailers, other retailers, competitive retailers, and manufacturers operate a much smarter business.
Right.
So no longer were you giving promotional dollars away because you had a good relationship with the buyer somewhere. You had to measure those results.
Right.
And am I going to get best bang for my buck? So a lot of people in my world complained about Walmart, but I think in many ways Walmart drove a lot of needed discipline. So through that adversity that industry faced, ultimately became, I think, more streamlined, efficient companies as well too. So again, through that adversity
it's true, and I'm not there yet, but I am going to want to talk to you about your training in martial arts. And but if you look at the UFC, the same thing can be said.
No doubt.
You had the boxer, you had the wrestler, you had the karate guy.
Brilliant idea.
And pretty soon you had a Gracie putting everybody on the ground and choking them out, and they're like, we got to adapt or die. We got to figure this out. And then everybody got jiu-jitsu, and it's like, well, but yeah, you still need wrestling, but okay, but now you need dirty boxing, and now you need boxing and striking. Yeah. So, you can find it everywhere in our history of these. I've talked about it before. There's a book called Black Swan that talks about these black swan events in history where in a very short period of time, because of something that's happened, there's been great advancement because of that black swan event. And so this pandemic and what's going on, with the police and Black Lives Matter and that, I think are going to be these black swan events.
Yeah. Well, listen, I believe Mother Nature teaches us many lessons if we're willing to pay attention to it. One of my favorite proverbs I'm going to paraphrase it, but a gem does not be perfected. Only becomes perfected through pressure. So I'm messing that up. But essentially, this ugly piece of coal ultimately becomes this beautiful diamond through years of pressure. And I think that's a great metaphor for people and situations like we're going through now, that this is a chance to help us grow, transform, and evolve.
So without giving away the goods, can you kind of give me just an overview on the book and kind of like, what can people expect with your training or in one of your seminars? Like, what's kind of the overall outline of what it is that you're helping people do with this?
Yeah, with the book or with my business?
Well, I guess, is there overlap or is it completely different?
A lot of my workshop content is based off the content within the book.
Okay.
So just going to the book first, the book is based off of 4 very strong pillars. One, helping understand brain functionality, how our brain functions under duress and stress, and how to better self-manage our responses to adversity, not emotionally, but more rationally. Right. Now, I learned this, you'll like this. I learned this from one of my former Muay Thai kickboxers about the brain functionality. So that part, I tie into that DISC behavioral assessment to help people understand what their emotional triggers are and what their responses will be. So if I'm in that negative, non-emotional state of freeze, fight, or flight, what are those things that trigger me into that stage? And what am I? Am I a freezer, fighter, flighter? So I can better self-manage. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
So that's another element of the book. The third element is I interviewed over 60 highly successful leaders, both men and women across multiple disciplines, businessmen and women, entrepreneurs, UFC fighters, professional and college football coaches, yoga instructors, again, businessmen and women. And I asked them a series of 5 questions about adversity, how they dealt with adversity, how they overcame it, how did they how did they prepare for it, so on and so forth. And just the information they gave me was unbelievable.
Right.
The effort put behind this. That's a third pillar. And the fourth one is my 32 years of experience in business. So it's not a fluff book by any means. It's very fact-based, it's scientific, and it's fun too. It's fun.
So what types of businesses have you been working with? It seems like it could apply in just about any setting. But
personal, professional development, any business. But my main verticals I focus on are.
I love that word verticals. I've only learned the word verticals recently, and now I hear it all the time. It's like when you buy a car and all of a sudden everybody drives it. Now I'm hearing about verticals constantly. So go ahead. Sorry.
The number one is consumer packaged goods, because that's my background basically. So that's a focus area. Another one is architecture, engineering, and construction. One of my biggest clients is Stanley Black & Decker. So that's how that came about. Another vertical would be small business, entrepreneur type of.
You ever worked with any lawyers or law firms?
No, I haven't. And I think there's a huge opportunity I want to talk to you about. There's a massive opportunity there. And then the last one is franchise type businesses. One of my biggest clients is Dippin' Dots.
Oh, yeah.
So
my daughter would love to talk to you about Dippin' Dots.
Yeah, I'll work with anybody, but that's the kind of the verticals I focus on. And 90% of my business growth is word of mouth.
Right.
So when I get a win in a certain vertical, I'm able to talk the talk better. I'm able to connect the dots. And that's, I landed Stanley Black & Decker, and that opened up a whole new world for construction, architectural, and engineers and other type manufacturers in that realm, distributors and wholesalers, that has allowed me to grow that vertical as well.
Now, is the business you, or do you have staff, or how's that set up?
I'm my own employer. I don't want to manage people
Sure.
anymore, but I've built relationships with other consultants in the
Okay.
industry that I will recommend them and they will recommend me. So sometimes I will help another consultant if something's in my wheelhouse,
Right.
especially, and another consultant will help me as well too. In addition, I consider myself a consultant. I'm not the end all be all to my customers. I go in and try to uncover my customers' needs. Then I build relevant solutions for those needs. I can do sales training, leadership training, team building, situational development like adversity, but my client may not need all those. It's incumbent for me to find what they
Knowing
need.
your audience, it goes
Right,
back to that
exactly.
skill set that you're,
Exactly.
training and teaching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Then building a customized program to meet those needs, whether it's workshop, consulting, one-on-one coaching, whatever that might be. In addition, if there's something not in my wheelhouse that a customer has a need for, I can reach out to one of those other consultant friends of mine
Right.
and recommend them as a solution for my respective customer needs.
Okay. So when did this book come out?
And the beginning of 2008.
Okay. So it's been out a little bit. Do you have a
Yeah.
third one in the works?
No,
Two's a good number.
Oh, two's a good number. As I said, writing's very difficult for me, but that book's my pride and joy, and I still have a lot of legs with that book.
Well, that's
and
great.
Yeah, I want to press that one.
So how is it that you got into martial arts?
About what is it? Shoot, 7 years ago. I used to be more of a runner. And
Uh-huh.
look at this body. I'm not meant to run. I'm a big, thicker guy. So I started developing plantar fasciitis.
Sure.
So I'm thinking I have to do some other things. And I had seen at Powerhouse Gym,
Yeah.
some coaches doing. I had seen other coaches do boxing with their customers. So I inquired about it, and one of the trainers pointed. He said, "That's your person right there." And it was a little 100-pound Filipino girl named
Uh-huh.
Melissa.
Uh-huh.
So I'm like, okay, whatever. But she had fought in the ring. She knew her stuff. So we first started boxing.
Right.
And, teaching me the combinations. She was great with fundamentals. And then after about 2 years, I started wanting to kick. I started getting into the UFC, wanted to learn about kicking. So I reached out to Gracie Tampa
Sure.
South.
Was that Rob Kahn or
Robin Matarroyo.
Matt Arroyo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they introduced me to a kickboxing instructor named Eric Parker,
Okay.
who I don't know if you know Eric or have heard of Eric.
I have. Yes.
13-0 amateur, former
Yeah.
SWAT team leader, Marine.
Yeah.
Excellent coach. And he taught me a lot about the brain functionality piece too. That's who I.
There's such a mirror of the sizing someone up for a sales or just any kind of interaction with the fight sports, the combat sports.
Oh,
But it's less verbal and more other things,
Oh, yeah.
you know. So
Oh, yeah.
anyway, go ahead. But
So I actually fell in love with the boxing with Melissa.
yeah,
Fell in love with it. But I started wanting to kicking, and then I really worked with Parker. I've had some amazing coaches. Eric Parker, a gentleman named Dan Rawlings. Are you familiar with Dan Rawlings?
I think I've heard that name before.
Dan Rawlings was a professional for years, fought in a fight league sponsored by Chuck Norris. I think it was called World Combat League.
Sure.
A kid named Billy Quarantillo, who's now in the UFC. And now I'm working with Jalal Amdato at Tampa Muay Thai.
David's
So-
great and Jalal's
Oh,
great.
the
Yeah.
fundamentals. I still am a fundamentals guy. I still go back to basic foot movement, basic striking. I can do some spin things and some cute things, but when I do that, I fall off the basic fundamentals.
Well, yeah, and you're 100% right. So I got into jiu-jitsu first before I got
Okay.
into Muay Thai.
Okay.
And so I started training jiu-jitsu with Hobson Mora, who's now got schools all over the Tampa Bay area. And at some point through that training, Hobson was training for some fights that he was doing over in Japan. And he was at Tampa Muay Thai. So I went there and I met
Yeah.
Ray and
Oh, yeah.
Jalal and David and Angel and all these other people. And that was the best shape I was ever in my
No
life. I
doubt.
was doing jiu-jitsu 4 or 5 days a week. I was doing Muay Thai 4 or 5 days
No
a week.
doubt.
And they were great because I didn't feel like I was cheating on one with the other.
That's
they were
right.
both just so different.
Yeah.
And I came in thinking, oh, my cardio is going to be great for Muay Thai because of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And it couldn't be
Different animal.
Well, just such a different
That's
animal.
right.
David had us sprinting up and down the mats on our knees, and
Yeah.
you do your 20/20s, and you do
Yeah.
all your other stuff, and you're just like, oh my God, but I love that. And it's such an intellectual endeavor that I don't think people always realize, both with jujitsu and with the stand-up sports. There's such a easy ability to write it off as kind of a meathead type of
Not at all.
tough guy thing. But some of the most beautiful, gracious people that I've met in my life, I've met through that training. Hobson, just a beautiful human being. Jalal, David, just these sweet
Parker
men.
Rawlings, same
No
guys.
ego at all.
No.
They don't. I've learned over time it's the guys that don't throw their weight around that you got to worry
That's
about.
right. Oh, no
Not
doubt.
the ones that do,
No doubt.
But then the other part of it that I've just loved, and with jiu-jitsu and with the stand-up, is the combinations. You're really having to analyze and think.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just a physical thing; it's very much an intellectual thing.
Yeah.
So
love it. Going back to your talk
Sure.
about, I've fallen in love with martial arts, especially Muay Thai and martial artists, the salt of the earth people. And let's go backwards. When I first started watching UFC, I couldn't watch it. I go, what are those guys doing? They're nuts. What's wrong with them? And being a former wrestler, what drew me in was watching Nick Diaz
oh yeah,
wanting to fight on his back.
right.
I'm like, that is counter.
The last thing you want to do as a wrestler. Yeah.
So I start watching this. Then comes on Uriah Faber, Donald Cerrone, these charismatic guys who you tell are just such great guys. And I just fell in love with UFC. I've probably been to 20 UFC live events. I've probably taken pictures, have met over 30 fighters. And I would say this, the most gracious, wonderful professional athletes you'd ever want to meet. Not one has ever said no to a picture. Not one has never wanted to sit down and talk. I BS'd with Stipe Miocic one night for a half hour. Just the nicest guy in the world. And just salt of their people.
Isn't he doing a title fight again?
He and Daniel Cormier.
Yeah.
It's the rubber match.
He looks like he's about a foot taller than him too.
He's huge, man. He's a good guy.
Or is it like a catchweight fight, or are they both? I guess
both
just heavyweights. I guess
Cormier
because the
moved up.
height.
Yeah.
Well, they announced today Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. And I was like,
Oh my God.
Did you not see that?
No,
Yeah,
no.
September. Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr.
Oh my God.
And I think they were like 3 or 4 weight classes apart. Now, Roy Jones Jr. has gotten pretty punchy in his life. I'm not super sharp on boxing. I have friends who are, but Tyson's looked scary lately. Like, have you watched any of his recent training videos?
I
don't mean the tattoo.
No,
He looks like his old self.
Yeah.
He's lost all of his weight. They show him now, in his 50s versus his 20s. You're just going to lose something, but interesting to see for sure. I could probably talk fight sports with you all the time. So who's your favorite fighter?
Probably Donald Cerrone. I'm still a fan of GSP.
Is he even fighting anymore?
No. Well, there's rumor he'd come back and fight
Anderson Silva.
Usman.
Oh, okay.
Usman. I'm a big fan of Jorge Masvidal now.
Uh-huh.
So the names are so different. I root very much for the former teammates, Matt Favola, who's out of Tampa.
Right.
And then Billy Quarantillo. So it really runs the gamut. I just respect them all. As I said, I know what this sport means now. I've seen Billy Quarantillo is in the UFC now, and the trials and tribulations, the obstacles that kid faced and overcame to make it to the UFC is motivational. It's incredible.
Yeah. Again, I just started this week watching The Last Dance on Netflix, the Michael Jordan documentary that was on ESPN. And you're talking about people coming from these backgrounds. And it's interesting because while the focus is Jordan, I'm only on episode 2. Were you a basketball fan at all?
Not much.
Okay.
No.
Well, you know who Scottie Pippen is.
Oh, yeah.
So Scottie Pippen was Jordan's right-hand man. And Scottie Pippen came from just absolute poverty, like a huge family. And you see what he came from and what he became. And it was any other team he would have been the Michael Jordan on, but he just happened to find himself on a team with Michael Jordan.
That's right.
And so, in some ways he could have gone 2 different ways with that. He could have caved, or he could have played ball.
Excuse me.
No, it's okay. It's okay. So anyway, well, I appreciate you coming on.
My
if
pleasure.
people want your services or want to find you, how do they find your book? How do they find you online? How can my listeners find you?
Again, the book is called In Defense of Adversity, Turning Your Toughest Challenges into Your Greatest Success. And it can be found on Amazon, paperback, hardback, audiobook, and ebook. My business is called Steve Gavatorta Group. And you can check my website out, www.gavatorta.com, Torta.com. Feel free to Google me. I have a ton of good stuff out there. I have a good YouTube site with a ton of motivational, professional, personal development information. And lastly, feel free to email me, steve@Gavatorta.com.
That's awesome, and I'm definitely going to pick your brain because I've started to suspicion that the sales pitch that attorneys are giving in consultations and on the phone could use a lot of work. Yeah. So that's kind of one of the new muscles I want to start working out.
Happy to work with you.
All right, thank you again.
Thank you.
All right.
Pleasure.